Hello everyone. Hello Facebook land and wherever you're joining in from. How are you? Now, how are you really? That's what I'm here for today, and I'm bringing in a panel full of people who have been through a lot of shit and come out the other side, learn some tips and how to navigate life. So we're here to talk about mental health today and the challenges that we're facing in 2020, which are above and beyond, I think, what most of us have experienced in our lifetime. And we'll talk about first understanding what we're experiencing, what we're all going through collectively, emotionally and mentally. So bringing awareness is key, understanding is key, and then we'll give you some tips on how to navigate grief, how to regulate your nervous system, how to find and cultivate gratitude and joy and peace in a time when it's difficult to do so, but you can, and it's a practice. So first I'll introduce myself. My name is Emily Plochet. I am the founder of the Collective. Collective is a yoga studio, virtual yoga studio and meditation studio. We're located online, so you can take our classes anytime, anywhere. We have teachers who teach meditation, yoga, somatic yoga, kundalini, yin yoga, we've got vinyasa yoga, different styles of meditation. And we're also going to be offering these roundtables periodically so that we can talk about life challenges and how to navigate. So a little bit about my background. I have a Master of Science in Yoga Therapy, and my specialization is somatic yoga. And somatic yoga is a process of rewiring the body's movement patterns and to access behavioral patterns and really connect to the self, natural movement and release at the same time. I also teach vinyasa yoga and meditation. I am an Army veteran, and I think that carries a lot, or at least you understand that as an Army veteran, I've been through some challenges myself, and yoga and meditation are what helped me to navigate my own depression and anxiety, and I have been using them every single day that this pandemic has happened. And that's what I was also going to say is I'm a survivor of 2020 so far. It has been an interesting year. And I brought some experts with me, some mental health experts, mental wellness experts, and people who've experienced life challenges also. The first person I brought with me today is John Way.
How you doing, Emily?
Hey, how are you doing?
Good.
John is the owner of the VA Way, and he's also an Army veteran. About 4 years ago now, we led an experiment in teaching yoga to veterans, and we monitored their mental health, emotional health, and we were really amazed at the results that we saw. John is also on the behavioral health board, local behavioral health board of Howard County. He is on the Opioid Crisis Council. I always get that one wrong. And he's also on the Howard County Veterans Commission. John started the nonprofit, the VA Way, several years ago in order to bring mental health training, mental health first aid training to veterans. And John is here today to talk to us about grief and what you may be surprised to learn about how you are experiencing grief right now. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, John?
Yes, thanks, Emily. And I just want to bring some clarification. It's the Opioid Community Crisis Council, and they do a lot of amazing work. And I'm not on the Howard County Veterans Commission, but I do help them in a lot of ways, just to have some clarity there. But thank you. I'm really excited to talk about this hard topic because, right now, recently, we're all going through some type of grief, one way or the other. And by definition, grief is deep or poignant distress caused by a loss of whatever it is. And it's hard. And when you're grieving, your brain starts doing all kinds of things, and neurochemicals are mixing with hormones, and they dance around your head. And this is a disruption in your hormones, and it can result in specific symptoms, disturbed sleep, loss of appetite, When all these symptoms converge, your brain function takes a hit, but your soul and your heart take a hit too. And it's really hard to navigate. So it's, you know, all grief is valid. Okay. There's no wrong way to grieve. All right. There's a lot of great information out there, but sometimes you have to go through it a few times to learn how to navigate it. And recently I've been helping a family member deal with grief and a friend deal with grief. It's all around us. We are grieving right now because we regret, and when we have regret going on and we're grieving, that's more distress in our minds. Okay. And then the regret part implies pain caused by deep disappointment. We're so disappointed in all the missed opportunities we've had with the last months of COVID. It just tears at your soul. So, grief is natural. We've been dealing with it for a long time, and there's all kinds of stages of grief. There's 5 stages of grief by one art person. And, you got to figure out what's going to work for you. But some of the lessons I've learned, recently is a little denial is natural because it allows time for your brain to process, trying to just acclimate, like, is this really happening? Am I going through this right now? I can't believe I have to have this conversation again with another person. And it's so daunting. And you got the person who's going through the grief, and then the partner or the observer of the person going through the grief. And it's really difficult because, again, everybody's grief is individual. And a lot of people, need to recognize that, the big lesson is grief usually leads to acceptance. Okay. Once you have the acceptance of that, that's going to help you really, understand where you are. And it's really important to, like, in the 5 stages of grief, you talk about the denial, like COVID. I can't believe this is happening, denial of like what's going on. And look, we're in isolation, but if somebody's lost somebody, they can't accept it. My uncle who just lost his partner of 49 years, he had no idea about accepting it at all in the beginning. He couldn't believe it. He actually thought that maybe he's going to come back. It's just grief can really impact you and also bring you down, so you got to be really aware of what that person that is going through, because they're in a hard time in their life, and nobody knows how to talk to them. What do you say? How you doing? Well, it sucks. My mom died. Duh. But you call them up and just, don't let them be in that isolation alone. You can call them up. There's a difference between being lonely and alone. That's what my uncle said. Anger, another stage of grief. And a lot of people don't understand how you could be angry, but it happens. Nobody's happy. There's anger is going to come out, and it's going to come out in one shape or another. So you need to be aware that when you see a person and that's not their norm, maybe, you don't understand the level of grief that they're going through. Okay. And these stages don't have to be done in that order. They come secular, they circle back around. And then you get into, bargaining. And that's the 3rd stage of grief. And you're trying to make a deal, like, I'm going to do better. Maybe if I do this, this will happen. And, it's just bargaining is not going to work. But right now, it's things like this has shaken our faith. you know, Grief is just shaked our faith. You're dealing with it so much, you don't understand how can this be happening to that person, and you see it everywhere. So, the bargaining is just an idea of maybe how to get some sense of control, so you don't feel so helpless. Depression, this is very common mental health disorder in America. When you're grieving, you're sad. And if you're in a constant state of mind of being sad and that loss, it can lead right into depression. But you need to recognize the signs and symptoms of your own depression to help get you out of the depression. You're going to have to go through it. You can't just pass it. I'm passing depression going to $200. Nope, you got to stop off and get some. That's just the way it is. It comes with it. And that's when you get into that acceptance part. The acceptance is just surrendering to it, and just say, all right, this is just part of my identity now, and I'm going to be able to just keep going and grow. It's just you got to rebranch out. You feel like the whole world is going to end and nothing else matters, and you can be in sorrow and all these things, but you have to recognize what stage of grief you could be in, and get the help with that. But like I said, all grief is valid. No one else gets to tell you how to grieve. And sometimes when people are out of the social norm of grieving, crying out in public or whatever, you still need to reach out to them and say, are you okay? Talk to them about anything else but what's going on, and they'll tell you what's going on. What do you think about that, Emily?
John, I think that's fair. And let me mute you so that there we go. Okay, it's really helpful, and the way that you talked about grief, and that we're all experiencing grief, not just those who've lost someone. We're experiencing grief in loss of our normal way of life. Some of us may have lost jobs. I know you were an MC for Delfest and Charm City Bluegrass Festival, and both of those festivals were canceled this year. So I can just imagine all the people who helped to work those festivals, the vendors, the musicians, the artists, MCs like yourself, and many of us have lost. We know someone who's lost someone. And the other day you were telling me about a different form of grief. I forget what you called it, like dissociative grief, perhaps. I wonder if you could talk, I'm going to unmute you, if you could talk a little bit about the other forms of grief that people might not know that they are even experiencing right now. Hold on, I can't hear you. Unmute. Okay, go ahead.
Good?
Yes, go ahead.
I was briefly talking about disenfranchised grief, where you're feeling grief for another person, another person's loss. It's, you're not really directly associated with that person or whatever, but it's like if a celebrity dies, it's just, you have grief from that. We pick up so much grief just through our social media feeds. We see people losing loved ones. We hear about people looking for jobs. When you hear the restaurants are closing down, waiters and stuff, and what are they going to do? And you think about the people who are really dependent on the food, going there, and just that social activity. When somebody's grieving, social activity is tough, but when they have it and then they lose that, even going to a restaurant is tough for somebody.
Yeah. I think people, a lot of people may not realize that they're experiencing grief. They know that they're feeling depression. They know they're maybe waffling between depression, anxiety, up, down, up, down, up, down. And I think being able to understand, like, oh, this is grief that I'm feeling because I get on Facebook and I see that my friend's mom and died. I get on Facebook and I see that this restaurant is closed, or, all this. So being able to understand that this is what I'm experiencing right now, it's grief. And then understanding the 5 stages of grief allows us to have acceptance around it. And acceptance is huge, because if you're not fighting your state of being, then you're allowing it. And this is true. This is such a true statement. You got to feel it to heal it. People, you got to feel it. Or I'm looking in the camera. You got to feel it to heal it. You have to feel your feelings. You have to feel it in your body. When you feel grief, when you feel depressed, when you feel anxious, where in your body do you feel it? Allow that in, and then you're able to process and move through it a little bit. So I'm allowing and accepting. Thank you, John. We'll come back to you in a few minutes, and I'm going to talk to Shayna right now. Shayna, I'm going to bring you into the stream. Let's see. And Shayna, I don't see, there we are. Cool. So let me introduce Shayna. Shayna is a yoga teacher, 500 hours certified, and she has some additional certifications in trauma-informed yoga and lucid body. And Shayna, I saw that you also teach for Rise Up, the Bodywise Foundation, and Breathe for Change. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about all of those things, trauma-informed yoga, lucid body, all those things that you do, please.
Sure. And just a heads up, I'm having some trouble hearing you, but I got what you just said. So I think we're good. Yes. So I am a 500 experienced registered yoga instructor. And in addition to yoga, I'll backtrack and say I was introduced to yoga through my theater training. So I also teach a acting technique. It's a somatic process that is rooted in understanding human behavior, because art is being human and being witnessed when you are performing theatrically. So it's a way to understand the body and understand our choices to not only serve character, but also off the mat or off stage. So we're starting to transform and rewire habitual patterns into new parts of self and possibility. So I teach yoga, I teach lucid body and trauma-informed yoga. So trauma-informed yoga is yoga specifically designed to speak to different demographics and communities that are finding their way towards healing. And that will look many different ways through many different practices. It's really unique to the individuals in the space. But trauma is a physiological response. It's any experience or event that overwhelms the body's ability to process the experience, and it can stay trapped in our system. And so our body is very intelligently designed to develop these coping strategies for high stress situations. And also, if those responses do not have an opportunity to fully release and discharge from our system, it can take us out of relationship. It can take us into different postural patterns in the body. It can take us into different ways of being that take us out of the present moment, and we can get stuck there. So I teach trauma-informed yoga, and I use all of these tools to inspire mindfulness and mindfulness practices to find social change and social justice, and hopefully bring ourselves and our world closer to equality and equity.
Thank you, Shayna. And I wanted to ask you how you've been navigating 2020 and any tips that you have to share your trauma-informed yoga to share with everyone who's watching today.
Well, for me, a lot of it is about slowing down. So part of rewiring our system's responses to moments of high stress or anxiety or grief, however we embody that, as John was saying, honoring it is so essential. And also taking our time with those moments to create new pathways of understanding and new pathways of responding and being is so important. And that's going to look different for everyone. So for me, some days it means yoga practice on my mat, a moving meditation, and taking time to be with my body, be with what is, and start to be curious with what's present so I can sit with it. And once I sit with it, it can unlock new ways of working through it. Sometimes it comes in the moment and sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. Sometimes it's walks with my dog outside, listening to music, calling a friend. So what I love about yoga is it brings us into ourself in different ways. And so as we continue to investigate our own self, we start to understand what speaks to us individually. And we have all of those tools at our disposal. So different moments might ask me to tap into a different practice to find some balance and healing.
I totally understand that. I've been trying to do yoga every single day, and some days I do it twice. And on the days that I've missed my practice, maybe I woke up and just went straight to work because I had a big day. I ended up regretting not doing the yoga because that usually was the day that I popped off on somebody, got triggered, got emotional. It's been a life-saving. It's been a lifeline for me. So it's my honor to be able to offer that to the world now through the Collective and through our classes. And Shayna, by the way, teaches for the Collective. She teaches yoga. Do you offer some of that trauma-informed yoga, like the poses and breath within your class, like a regular class? Or is that a specific class that you offer?
So it's specific, although a lot of those ideologies that inform the trauma-informed practice are influenced in my, they've influenced my teaching a great deal. So always giving invitation to choice, giving a choose your own adventure format in the practice, because a lot of trauma-informed yoga is about stepping back into one's body, because often one of the stress responses in our body is to dissociate. It's our body's intelligently designed way to cope with really challenging situations. How can I still be here and do what I need to do to survive and get to the next moment? And how can I also distance myself from the situation so I can get to the other side? And so in trauma-informed yoga practices, a lot of it is about returning to the body, returning to sensation and a sense of self. And again, depending on the demographic of that community, sometimes it's the first opportunity someone may have to make particular choices or to listen to their body and engage with it in a particular way. So while my classes aren't a standard trauma-informed yoga format, which can include a lot of nuances with sound and lighting and not demoing, I do still invite the opportunity to get in touch with oneself and make choices and to honor whatever that looks like in the moment.
Thank you, Shayna. For those of you who don't really know what the word dissociate means, or to dissociate because of trauma, dissociation is what happens when a circumstance is so extreme or chaotic, when you kind of go out of your body. And it's not to say like an out of body experience that we all kind of want to happen. It's more that we shut off sensation from the tissue to the brain. So for example, you might not feel sensation in your belly. That's where a lot of people tend to dissociate when they're feeling stressed. And for example, I had years and years of digestive issues and even fertility issues and endometriosis and I eventually realized it was from dissociating. I had been completely checked out. And when I finally was able to check in and feel sensation in my belly, and it was through yoga practices and meditation, I realized that I was almost always constantly clenching my abdominal region and all of the muscles there. And that's what they have found, that dissociation is normally accompanied with sensory motor amnesia. And that's just a long word for saying your muscles are doing this, squeezing really tight, but your brain's not aware of it because it's become a habitual pattern. And that's where a lot of our pain, our kind of everyday pain, comes from. Jaw pain, back pain, hip pain, that comes from muscles that have gone into dissociation, sensory motor amnesia. So yoga, and especially trauma-informed yoga, is very much about body sensing, feeling inside, because like I said earlier, you got to feel it to heal it.
And if may I add on that and say that it's, I also just want to emphasize that it's a positive response that our body has to protect our systems. And so it has a function, and yet we can still get stuck there. So how can we use our body's natural mechanisms to heal and navigate those moments, and also continue to move forward so we're not just surviving but thriving?
Yes, thank you for mentioning that, because it is important to frame it that way, that it's not a bad thing that we have dissociated. It's what we needed to do in the time when our brains or our bodies weren't able to comprehend or process what was going on. But you just don't want to be dissociating your whole life, because that leads to a lot of patterns in the body. Shayna, was there anything else you wanted to share? Otherwise, we'll bring you back in.
Yeah, especially as we talk about trauma, I also want to acknowledge that as we engage in these practices of mindfulness and regulating our nervous system, that feeling safe is a privilege. And some bodies don't have the experience to develop those patterns or habits to have a regulated nervous system. Sometimes they may not have that option at all, or sometimes the circumstances might not make it possible. So I want to acknowledge that, because especially as we navigate this time of pandemic, we're seeing so much inequity in our healthcare system and who's being affected by the virus, education, and all of these other socio-economic, cultural institutions and ways in which our society works or doesn't work, I should say. So I just wanted to name that, because I think it's really important to recognize how interconnected it all is, and also it's a complex embodiment of not only our internal experiences, but also where our inner life meets our external world.
Yeah, that's another good point, that it is a privilege to be able to develop a nervous system that is able to calm itself. Definitely. Thank you, Shayna.
Thanks for having me.
Back in a few. Thank you. So next, I'm going to bring in Carrie Sitaro. Carrie Sitaro is the offspring of a hostage negotiator / psychologist and an ER nurse. So she was basically born for navigating the rapids and born for navigating the rapids of 2020. Carrie is also a sought after yoga teacher in New York and New Jersey, and she specializes in teaching yoga for anxiety and depression. She's also experienced with postpartum depression, divorce, and working with clients in depression and anxiety, and just dealing with life stuff. Carrie is very down to earth. She's very well known for her humor and candor and just realness. And Carrie's going to share with us some tips, just kind of easy life hacks and brain hacks for navigating anxiety and depression.
Thanks for having me, Em. So first, I just want to say that 2020 has been a lot, and it can really bring up a lot of trauma that we thought we dealt with already, whether it's the divorce of your parents or the loss of a baby, a miscarriage, anything, breakup, whatever it is. It can be brought to the surface again during these trying times. And so it feels like a wound is being reopened. So a lot of times the entry wound and the exit wound don't match up. So you might find yourself upset or anxious or sad about something you don't understand why. And it could just be these deep waters that you thought were sunk down and taken care of, bringing themselves back up into the forefront, basically knocking on the door saying, you're not done yet, which we sort of have to look at as a gift, because some of these checkpoints, I like to call them, that's probably like a weird thing to call them, are just that. It's saying, hey, you thought you were done. Guess what? You're not done. You're only done when you're dead. And let's hope none of us reach that point anytime soon. I also just want to say before I do these little tips and techniques is that mental illness or depression or anxiety, I don't even want to call it mental illness, just these seasons of our mental spaces in tribal societies are not considered a negative thing. I feel like they get a bad rap these days, although it is getting better now that more people are talking about it. But in a lot of ancient tribal cultures, the people that felt things deeply, whether we call it empathy or emotion or whatever you want to call it, those were the seers in that community. And the community really gathered around them and held space during these times where they felt anxious or depressed or sad or whatever it is, and allowed them to be really raw and open, but with support, which then gave them greater inner wisdom to navigate. And then they talked about their experience to everyone else, and that helped lead the community. And I just think that's such a beautiful thing, because that is not how it's done here. That is for sure. And so one of the lessons that I really want to say before I teach you these tips and techniques, like little hacks for your life, is that just like when a snake sheds its skin, it has a period of temporary blindness. And during that time, all of its other senses are really awake. P.S. This is a thumb finger brace, in case you're like, what's that thing she's waving? But if we can do that, if during these times where we're feeling really emotionally vulnerable, we can stay open and vulnerable and safe and supported, then all of our other senses start to become keener. And it's those senses that can, one, make us actually experience life in a greater, more beautiful way. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced sorrow and extreme beauty at the same time. It happens a lot when you're like the saddest you've ever been. And then you see like a petal and you're like, oh my God, that petal is so beautiful. It's because the rest of your senses are becoming alive. That's why some of the greatest works of art, of music, of poetry have been written and done when people are sad, because their other senses are really awake. So if we can stay a little bit open and vulnerable with our eyes and our hearts and our everything open during that time, but within the safety of making sure we're safe, that we're mitigating some like extreme experiences that might be scary in the body, and that if we can stay around community and friends, then it's an opportunity to actually go deeper into our state of existence. And that's how it was in many ancient cultures. So sometimes when I'm feeling really sad or anxious, I just think I'm a snake shedding my skin. It's going to come back on soon. I just have to experience other sensory stuff to help me get through this. All right. So I'm not a doctor. I've never even played one on TV. So just know you should always see a professional if you're feeling really, in the danger zone. Okay. But some hacks, and I'm just going to use the words anxiety and depression just to make it easy on everybody, since I feel like the world lets us know what those things are. But don't feel like you have to label yourself as anxiety or having depression. But when you're on like the low swing, we'll call that depression just for ease of conversation. What that is that's when you feel like that you are the number one person in your universe, right? It's like being the worst best friend, where you're like, everything is about that girl or that guy. Nothing is about anybody else. That's how it is when you're depressed. Everything is about you. You can't actually get out of yourself. You cannot get out of your own way. You're in what I like to call the shit ditch, which means you're down in the stinky ditch. And the more you try to climb yourself out of it, the more the shit falls on you, and it just gets worse, right? And so what that is like you're too internal. So a life hack for when you're feeling depressed is to go external. And that might mean something really as simply as letting some skin show. So wearing a V-neck or like a tank top, so that you actually feel the sensory experience of air on your skin, or walking outside in the cold. Obviously, don't like pull like a go out naked in the snow situation, but feel different, the cool breeze on your skin. Make sure that you take a chance to like look around you, go on a nature walk, go outside of yourself or help someone. That's another really big thing. Do some sort of service that helps you put yourself in someone else's shoes to get you out of yourself. Because depression, the shit ditch, it's all about you. It's very hard to get out of yourself. So look for opportunities to engage. Call someone, although I know it's hard to do that. Take a walk, make eye contact, commune with an animal, hug a tree, commune with nature. Do things that help open up your chest. So for instance, I'm on a chair here. So a yoga pose, a real simple yoga pose, is you can lean yourself back on a chair and open up your heart, right? Or take a twist. You can take your one arm. Look, I'm sweating because I'm nervous. I'm talking in front of people. Sweat. That's anxiety, guys. So you can have your arm on a door jamb and kind of walk through the door jamb to help open up your chest, right? Either side. You can interlace your hands behind your back. Stuff that helps you come out of that hunched, which is how you are when you're in the shit ditch. You're just hunched down and be like, I don't want anything to fall on me, right? Anxiety. That's the one that tends to be my best friend personally. Sometimes the depression comes in there, but anxiety is my BFF, been my friend for a real long time. And so what anxiety is it's sort of like animals that are afraid of thunderstorms, and then you put that thunder shirt on them. If you've ever seen that, it's like a thing that makes them all snuggled tight, or like gravity blankets, right? Anxiety is when there's too much stimulus coming in, right? I often, when I hear my friends talk about their autistic children, I feel like somewhere in there, that's me, because I freak out from too much stimulus, because anxiety is too much stimulus that you're creating on yourself. So then if there's any external stimulus on top of that, like loud noises, too much visual, whatever, it like short circuits me, right? So one of the things to combat anxiety, when you have too many thoughts, when you can't go to sleep, when you're jittery in your body, because sometimes you're anxious in your mind, but depressed in your body. That's when you're like lethargic, but your brain is going. We can be one thing in our body and a different thing in our minds, right? That's variety, it's the spice of life, guys. But with anxiety, it's the opposite. You want to damper down stuff coming in. So a hack for me is I usually always have a hoodie on. Obviously, you can see I'm sweating my ass off, so I don't have a hoodie on right up here, but take a hoodie, put it over your head, kind of tighten it up, zip it up. It's sort of like horse blinders. It allows you to feel snuggled in, a little weight on your belly. So if you're laying down on the couch, a weighted blanket, a pillow, dogs are really good for that. Cats are really good for that. Laying across your belly, a sense of weighted, like the gravity to the floor, getting close to the floor, grounding down into nature, and turning off extra stimulus, whatever that is. Maybe don't have music on all the time. Maybe don't have TV on all the time. Again, you want to commune with nature and everything like that, but it can feel overwhelming to have too many things going on at the same time. So do your best to pretend that you are like a dog in a thunderstorm and get your thunder shirt on, whatever kind of comforting things to help damper down the experience of sensation. And yogically or posturally, because it doesn't really have to be like quote unquote yoga, you want to hunker down. So rounded things, right? So like cat pose feels really good. Or when you have your soles of your feet together and you press your forehead down on a block, that feels really good. Or just laying down to go to sleep on your belly can feel really good. Any pose or child's pose, that's a popular one that I think most people know what that is. Anything where you're sensory, putting a blanket and just kind of like hunkering down. And then one last tidbit I will leave you with, which is a tiny little breath hack. The inhales in the body are nourishing and uplifting, right? And the exhales are very releasing. And so if you're having anxiety, I recommend trying to lengthen your exhale. So let's just say you inhale for 2 to 3 breaths. We'll just say that. Try to double that, right? So try to exhale for 4 to 6 breaths, right? So you're inhaling for 2 or 3, let's just say roughly, and exhaling from 4 to 6. So you're lengthening and focusing on that exhale. And the inhale, if you're feeling depressed, maybe work on lengthening that, because that's like the nourishing, enlivening part. So you'll inhale, say for 4 to 6, and you'll exhale for a shorter amount of time. And then it's like me, sometimes you don't even know what you need because you're like, oh gosh, I think I'm depressed and anxious. Then just try to lengthen equally the amount of time you're inhaling and exhaling, right? So a good way to remember this is inhale the good shit, exhale the bullshit. So you exhale longer when there's a lot of bullshit going on that's making you feel anxious. And you inhale the good shit. That's all that energy, all that positive stuff. That's an easy way to remember that little breath hack. And I just want you to know that you're not alone. If you identify as having anxiety and depression, you should feel good that at least you're at the beginning part of the stage where you're acknowledging that it's happening to you. I would say 80 to 90% of the population on the planet feels this way. And not all of them feel brave enough to say that they feel this way. So you are not alone. You do not need to feel stigmatized. You have a deep wisdom inside you. You're a deep feeler. The key is to have all those things happen, but with safety, without going out of that range where you feel like you are unsafe to yourself or others, or that you can't get out of it by yourself. Okay. So please know we're all here to reach out. Most of my classes have an element of this kind of deep sharing in it. Some of the postures I talk about, I always throw it in because it's a part of my daily life. I've suffered from this my entire life. So it always is a little bit in all of my classes, but not necessarily focused 100% on that. But all of my classes are about making everybody feel like they belong and that no one is left out, regardless of age, race, skill, feelings, that however you come to your mat is exactly how you should be. You do not need to be anything special. You do not have to bring your lavender, Gwyneth Paltrow, Oprah vibes to my class. You can bring your big old vibes of whatever you're feeling, including like F this. You can bring that to the mat. And the idea is to transform those feelings and not get rid of them, right? Because they make you who you are. Part of who you are these feelings that you're having. And so we need to honor that too.
Excellent. Thank you, Carrie, so much. I just saw what Egle said. She said, Carrie Sitaro is my new yoga crush. She's so fucking fabulous. I just love it. She's very real. And Peter, I see you there. Hi, Justine, Erica. I just want to say, I love what you said about the exhalation, lengthening the exhalation. That's something I learned in my yoga therapy degree. And was discovered by a scientist in the 1970s named Herbert Benson. He called it the relaxation response. But Carrie said, hold the exhalation out for double the amount of breath. She meant the seconds. So if you inhale for 2 seconds, then exhale for 4 seconds. Or if you inhale for 4 seconds, then exhale for 8 seconds. But you do that for just 2 minutes and you will feel your nervous system within that time just go, it puts you in the parasympathetic. Is that parasympathetic? Yeah, I always mix them up when I've led teacher trainings. But it puts
Me too.
sympathetic nervous system, which just really means that it tells your body there's no tigers, there's no danger. It tells your body that it can start sending resources to regeneration, to restoring, to cellular growth, to digestion. So it's the good shit. Inhale the good shit, exhale the bad shit. Love that. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
I'm going to bring in Dee Satterfield, adding her to the stream. And I'll tell you a little bit about Dee. So Dee found meditation before yoga, which is fascinating because normally people find, lately I feel like people find yoga before meditation. But she found it while she was a single mom on welfare, putting herself through college. And it helped her to navigate all of those challenges. She's now a social worker in Maryland. And she's also an end-of-life doula. And she comes from a line of end-of-life doulas in her family. She's from a Haitian family. And Dee is going to tell us a little bit about all of that. Welcome, Dee. Let me unmute you first.
There we go. Hello,
Right.
beautiful souls. Hey.
Hey, hey.
Hey, hey there. So thank you for having me. So yeah, long story short, I'm a person that likes to go into hospice. That's just it. It is something that has been in my family that there is always someone there to hold your hand to transition to the next stage of evolution beyond this. And during this pandemic, it's not there. People are dying alone and scared. And we are so much in survival mode that we forget about the little kids. We forget about the children. We forget that how are children processing this? Children learn with their whole being because they're closer to the spirit than we are. They're not tainted as much as we are. So when they process stuff like this, it's internalized. It's me. Maybe I did something wrong. Why can't I go to school? Why can't I hug my friend? Why I got to be at home with mom? This is boring. I understand all that. And because we are so much in survival mode right now, because we have a pandemic and there's a food shortage and there's money shortage and unemployment is running out and things of this nature, we have to stop and look it through the children's eyes. So when it comes to children with this pandemic, allow them to go into fantasy world. And I know some people like, no, that's not realistic. They need that. Let them be that superhero. Let them dress up as Superman. Let them dress up as, Wonder Woman. Let them process this the way they need to. And you need to get down to them on that level when it comes to it. Honestly, I've been playing toys from when I was little. I was just playing jacks a few minutes ago while we was talking and getting through this. So when it comes to this, and it's too much. It's so much stimulation, news. Turn it off. Go to childlike, coloring book with your kid. Let them ramble. And I know some parents are like, oh my goodness, they're here with me all day. They're just talking and talking and rambling. Within that rambling, you'll get their feelings. This is how they process. They need to ramble. And in the midst of it, you'll say, why did grandma or granddad or uncle had to go and I couldn't even say goodbye? This is how they process. So when it comes to children in this pandemic, let them ramble. And even though it gets on your fucking nerves, I get it. Within that rambling, you will hear their feelings. And they don't process grief the way the way of grief processing. It's deeper. It's very deeper. So when it comes to the kids, when it comes to this pandemic, because they can't learn with their whole being, not just with words, but by facial, by energy, by touch, allow them to be over excited. Allow them to touch you more. Allow them to lay on you more. And if they don't want to, don't let them. It has to be on their own level. When I was in this anxiety mode, I was in survival mode. I was a single mom. I was on welfare. I was living in public housing. I had a child that I refused to put through public school. And I from hook or crook, he went to Catholic school from pre-K to 12. And in the midst of it all, I ran into some monks. Now, you got to understand, I'm from the inner city. I ain't know no fucking monks. I never thought of it a day in my life. But I met some monks that literally light bulb came off. It came off in my head. So when I came to this practice with the meditation, that was my base. The physical yoga, I didn't want to do it because in my mind, people who look like me with my body don't do yoga. And I practically said that to my guru. I was like, black people don't do yoga. What is this? But it was an understanding of there are people who are not even understanding about grief because they are too busy trying to make it. They're too busy trying to feed their family. And they put grief on the back burner. And on that point, they put the children's grief on back burner. They can't deal with theirs, so how can they deal with the children? So I implore you, let this be your time to tap into some new stuff, new shit that you've never heard of. It's not corny. It works. It's okay to sit in silence. And it's okay for your mind to go to this monkey place. It's okay. Over time, when you start loving and accepting and understand that this pandemic is horrible, but there are some light in this. Mm-hmm. This is a time that you're actually spending more time with your kids and you're listening to your kids more than you could because you was working. And some people are working from home. Not saying that they're stopping, but this pandemic is allowing you to stop and look at your child like, oh, how are you doing? So during this time, listen to the kids. And sometimes the children have more wisdom than you. I'm going to be honest. Sometimes kids can spit some wisdom and you're like, oh, damn, that was deep. Mm-hmm. So in that speaking and their grief, they're telling you, they are so closer to the spirit than we are. They are really telling you some things that are there. And for Emily, I do ancestor work. So a lot of times when we have these people dying in our family because of COVID, trust me, their energy is passed on to the younger generation because they're more susceptible to take it than us. So when your children talk, even after you lost your mom and you lost your dad and you lost your partner, and a child comes to you and say something, do not brush it off because that is coming from that spirit that has gone on. We just need to listen.
Thank you, Dee. That was super helpful. And I think, when we think of the challenges in the pandemic, we don't really talk about so often like how children are navigating and what they're experiencing because their whole world has changed too for most of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you. And let me see. Oh, I've got this cool banner. I haven't put it up for anybody else, but here we go. If you guys want to find Dee, that's her website, deesatterfield.com. Dee teaches meditation and she also teaches yoga, and she teaches yoga and meditation on the Collective weekly. And she also teaches yoga classes for yoga teachers on how to teach yoga to people with different shapes, different body sizes, because you mentioned it earlier, how at first you didn't try yoga because you didn't feel like you were the right size or the right color. And that's something that has to change. Yoga is for everybody. Yoga is for every color. And it's my goal and hope to make it more accessible to all, and we're working on that. Thank you, Dee.
Thank you, Emily.
All right, I'm going to bring in Michelle Bickley. Michelle is going to talk to us. Well, I'll tell you what she's going to talk about in a second. Let me talk about Michelle. So Michelle is a co-creator of the Collective, and she has been teaching yoga to adults and children for over 20 years. Michelle found yoga and meditation after when she was dealing with an eating disorder and depression, and yoga and meditation helped her to heal from that, to grow and to evolve. And she decided then and there that she wanted to take these tools and skills and teach them to the rest of the world. Michelle, before we go into talking about breathing exercises for kids and for adults, I wanted you to tell me a little bit about you're muted, so you're going to have to unmute yourself. But I wanted you to tell me a little bit about what you did in LA and what you have, all of the cool things that you've created for kids and parents at home dealing with virtual school.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks to all the people that have shared. Dee made me cry a little. I love that, she just said, we just need to listen. Like that is the bottom line. Like we need to listen to the kids. We need to listen to ourselves, to our bodies. You know, we need to just listen. And I think that, I guess to answer your question, Emily, when I moved to Los Angeles in 1998, and it was a long time ago, and I was teaching in the schools out there, and I was teaching dance, and the classroom teachers kept asking me to teach yoga, and so I started teaching yoga, and then I thought, oh, maybe I should take some yoga classes. So I actually know what I'm doing. So I started doing yoga trainings and got really into yoga. And there was a moment at a school early on in those years where I was teaching the yoga poses to the kids. And I said, look, this week, if you feel upset, if you are angry, like if you feel nervous and like you're really worried about something, like just try a pose. Just try a pose and take 5 deep breaths. And come back here next week and tell me what happened. And a little boy came back, and because I would ask, you know, okay, did anyone try the poses? And did anyone do their breathing? And this little boy said, my parents were screaming at each other again. And I couldn't do my homework. And I went up into my room and I got into child's pose and I took 5 deep breaths and I started to feel better. And he's like, and then I could do my homework. And I was like, okay, all right, we need more of this. Like this is an important thing. And like, you know, Emily, you mentioned that, you know, I had an eating disorder and dealt with depression as well. And I think it's really important to note that this yoga stuff is fantastic. The meditation stuff is also fantastic. Both are like really, really powerful. But if you have an issue that is serious, you know, these issues range from something that just kind of pops up every now and then to something that can be extremely complex and deep and big. And there are people that are professionals, therapists, psychoanalysts that can help. And I went to a ton of therapy, 12-step program, and then found yoga. And yoga has kind of been the thing that has led me along since 10 years of therapy. But it's, you know, there are a lot of tools out there and a lot of help out there. And I think that one of the important things is to somehow, like, for us to stay connected so that when stuff does come up, we can ask for help. And it's okay to ask for help and to know that it's okay to ask for help. When the pandemic hit, my kids went a little nuts. I mean, the whole world was experiencing some stress, and everybody, you know, has had this hit them in different ways. I realized that especially my son was being triggered, and we started doing yoga in the house together and reached out to our therapists and reconnected. And I kept hearing from, you know, their friends' parents and my friends, and just like how much, like Dee was talking about, like how much difficulty the children were having during this. And so over the years, I've created these things in my kids' yoga classes called the yoga tools. And it's kind of like the little jewels that that stick out as really being something that is helpful and effective. And when I teach my yoga camps, as we're learning throughout the week, I'll ask the kids to let me know when they notice that something helps them in some way. And then I actually have a physical toolbox and we write the thing down, like whether it's, you know, a certain type of breathing, or it's a certain type of pose, or it was a certain like journaling prompt that we did. Like we write the thing down and we put it in the toolbox. And so in March, when I realized what we were dealing with personally, and like sort of what the world at large was trying to swallow and hold, that these tools could be helpful for people. So we made them into actual cards, and my daughter helped me. And And I think it's like a really practical way to take yoga and meditation and make it super easy to pick up and use. And it can be a helpful tool, a really helpful tool to help someone get through. So I kind of want to share some of those tools. I don't even know if I answered your question. I sort of went off on a tangent.
No, you did. And if you're ready to share your breathing tools, then we are ready too.
Yeah. Thank you. So, and I put all the little cards in front of me so I knew which ones I was going to talk about. So this one is, I think it's my favorite. And what I'll say is all of these cards that I made, you know, they have like fun names, and a lot of times kids yoga is presented in a way that's like fun, so that the kids want to do it. You know, they don't want to sit down and close their eyes and be still, like not usually anyway. Every once in a while you find one that does, but they get to that through movement and through play and through fun. Like they get to that place where, oh, they're still, and all of a sudden they feel themselves, and like it's beautiful. So I do these breathing techniques with my adults in my adult yoga classes. I just don't call them these funny names and give them like nice little fun, like cartoon to go with them. So ocean breath is essentially what adults practice as Ujjayi pranayama. And it sounds like the ocean, which is how it got its name. And if you take a breath in, and you can try this with me if you'd like, and adults and children can do it. And it kind of sounds like you are going to fog up a window. And it's a breath that takes a while to, for some people anyway, it takes a while to really get it, like to understand it, to feel it, and to be able to do it. Some people get it right away, and that's amazing. It took me a while, but it sounds like you're kind of fogging up this window in front of you. And you do it with your mouth closed. But I think one of the best ways to learn it is to practice breathing out of your mouth. So you can all take a breath in and then open your mouth and just blow it out. Good. Do it one more time like that. Deep breath in, right into this moment. Open your mouth, let it go. Good. Now, see if you can make that same sound with your mouth closed. So breathe in and out through your nose. And what will happen automatically is your throat will kind of constrict and narrow, and the movement of the breath up and down the throat will create that sound. So just try with your mouth closed. Have an inhale and exhale with that same sound. Yeah, and it kind of works. So ocean breath is magical. It's actually like science-based, but I like to think of it as magical, and the kids like to think of it like that too, because this is the same sound you make at night that everybody makes when they are in their deepest level of sleeping. So if you've ever been next to a parent or a partner and you hear them drop into sleep, I mean, sometimes they're snoring, but there's also this sound that you hear that is the ocean breath, the And so what happens when you do this type of breathing during the day, your brain recognizes the sound and sends the message to your nervous system to calm down. So you'll be wide awake. And if you start doing this breath, your brain waves will actually change. Like they will actually shift from beta waves, like everyday normal activity, into this alpha like state of relaxation. And it's very powerful. So I like to do the ocean breath and send it to different parts of the body. And we're going to do something called the belly breath. And we do this with kids and adults. With children, it's really fun to like get a little stuffed animal. Adults, you can do this too. And you lie down and you put the stuffed animal like on your belly. And you're going to take the stuffed animal on a little ride. Grown-ups, if you don't have a stuffed animal handy, you just take your hands, and you can do this seated as well. You put your hands on your belly. And then what we're going to do is take 5 ocean breaths, and they're going to be slow and deep and beautiful. And just feel your belly filling up like a balloon and softening and relaxing like all the air leaves the balloon. Good. Let's do 5 of those. Inhale, fill up. Exhale, release. Inhale, fill up. Let it go. One more like that. And let it go. Good. And between 5 and 10 breaths, you'll start to notice a difference. The thing to remember that's, I think, really important about all of these poses and all of these breathing techniques is that you kind of have to do them every day. You have to practice them, even if it's for 3 minutes, like do 1 minute of ocean breathing a day. Because if you're nervous or if you get really angry or having a panic attack, you're not going to be able to just slide into this kind of breathing unless it's something that you've practiced and you know. I will start doing this kind of breathing without even realizing at this point. If I'm in traffic or if I feel myself like getting anxious about something, my kids will just go, "Oh, she's ocean breathing again," and it helps. Like it helps me, so I do it, and my kids do it too. Especially my daughter. My son sort of resists with things sometimes, but he's young, so. Ocean breathing is a beautiful thing. Add your belly breath, add the little stuffed animal on top of the belly, and you want to see if you can like let it lift up slowly, right? So like you want to take the little guy on a ride and you don't want to bounce him up and down to the point where he like falls off. I mean, that's fun too. But the idea, if you're wanting to relax, and Carrie kind of tapped into this a bit too, the like simple rule about the breathing is if you focus on the inhale breath, it energizes, it activates, it heats. And if you focus on the outhale breath, it will outhale. Is that a word? Exhale breath. Outhale it all. You will like feel calmness and your body will naturally cool. So, and then the evenness of the breath brings some balance. So another breath that we like to do to help us sort of get rid of the bad, icky feelings, the hard feelings. And I love Emily talking about like this idea, like feel it to heal it. It's a really like simple saying that sticks with you. And it's so true. Actually, maybe I'll show you this one thing before I show you the other breath thing. One of the things we do in our kids' yoga is to try to figure out how we're feeling, right? Like what's going on? There's a lot of distractions in this world, and we'll sit and we'll breathe, and we can try this. And I do something called finger taps, and it's kind of like like using mudras, and you tap your first finger and thumb together, your second finger, your third finger, and your pinky finger. And if you're a really small child and you can't tap those fingers, then you can just do tap the thumb and the first finger together. And you'll place your hands on your knees, and you can sit nice and tall. And you take a deep breath in, press the thumb and the first finger together, take a breath in, close your eyes, exhale and soften, and just kind of notice in your body, like, do you feel any warm spots, any cold spots, any sensations? And we go through this process of building awareness. And then we'll go around the room, and if a child likes to share, they can share how they're feeling. And this is kind of fun too, because we feel all these different things, and whatever it is, like bottom line, it's okay to feel that. And when we take a breath into that feeling, it helps us to see it and to recognize it and then to process it. So let's say, we have a kid that's like feeling really excited, and they share that they're excited. So we all practice that feeling, and we say, I feel excited. I feel excited. And then we always have like, the kid that's tired. I feel tired. And we get really sleepy. And then we can kind of talk about, well, do we want to balance these feelings? Do we want to bring in any other feelings to help us regulate? And the sitting tall and saying to yourself or singing to yourself, I feel peaceful. I feel peaceful. And we sort of just start to identify and recognize. And then when we do have these feelings that are super icky, we do what's called the lion's breath. And we do this in adult class too. This is not just a child's breath. When we do it in kids class, like we act like a lion, which is really fun. Some of the adults are really good at that as well. But the idea is whatever that feeling is, if it's the anger, if it's like the worry, if it's the fear, like breathe into it, take a deep breath right into it. open your mouth and get rid of it. Yeah. And this helps to shift things around that are stuck in our body, that are stuck in our brain. I don't know how I'm doing on time, Emily. If you want me to just stop talking now, or if you want me to share some more, you let me know.
That was perfect, actually.
Okay, great.
Perfect. You can hear me. Okay. That was great. And the ocean breath, Ujjayi breath, I also describe it as the Darth Vader breath, because you kind of sound like,
yeah.
But it's a lot of people when they first get into a yoga practice and they feel their whole life and their mental state and their emotional state changing, and they think it's the poses, but it's really the breath with the poses. And what's really cool, I like to talk about the science behind breath, but if you look at the nervous system and you look at something like heartbeat and heart rate, like our heart just beats. We don't have to think about it. It happens all day, all night. Digestion, our stomach digests. We don't have to think about it. It happens. With breathing, we don't have to think about it either. We sleep all night long. We breathe all day without thinking about it. However, we can also control our breathing. And our breathing is kind of like the pinch hitter. It can go both sides. It's on both sides of the nervous system. But because we can control it, the breath is our key to the nervous system. So when we manipulate and regulate breath, it's like us, the observer, the navigator, telling our system, hey, we want to be down here. We're up here, we want to be down here. Or we're down here and we want to be up here. So breath is so powerful. And if you come away from today with a breathing practice, then excellent. Yoga, it takes it one step further because like Michelle says, it gets you to start directing breath to different parts of your body and moving stuck energy. So super powerful. Thank you very much, Michelle. And I also wanted to say, like that card that Michelle held up, can you hold it up one more time just so people can see what it looks like?
The lion's breath.
She has a whole bunch of these cards for parents, for kids, and you can find that on her website. Her website's right there. It's lovelifeyoga.org.
Yeah, and if you are having financial hardship, reach out to me and I will happily send you these cards. And I also have a yoga resource package that has like videos, guided meditations for anxiety to help sleep, which actually really works. It's amazing. I will happily send them to you. So just let me know.
Excellent. Thank you. Before we kind of open up to questions, and if some of you do have questions for any of us teachers, start to think about what they are, and you can start to write them in the chat there. Before we open up questions, I wanted to bring John Way back one more time to talk to us about mental health first aid. So mental health first aid and where they can find it. I'll put your website up there as well so they can see. Thank you, John. Hold on. I can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself? There we go.
Thanks, Emily. Okay, mental health first aid, it's like when CPR came out, not everybody knew what was going down with that. Mental health first aid is the first response to somebody in a mental health or substance use crisis. They are dealing with something at that time right now is making them in a crisis, and they are, on the edge. You don't know which way it can go. So just like in CPR, you need to know how to respond. But with mental health first aid, when you see somebody in crisis, either you know how to do CPR and you want to help them, or you don't know and you don't know how to help them. So what mental health first aid does is it teaches you the skills to recognize the signs and symptoms of an adult or a child experiencing mental health crisis. It could be depression, anxiety, a panic attack. I mean, who knows the difference between a panic attack and a heart attack? Nobody does. They are almost identical. Well, Emily does, right? But it is really important to know the difference and be able to help somebody through that. So mental health first aid gives you a set of skills, and we teach you an action plan on how to, make sure the main thing is they're safe. There's not going to be a chance of suicide. Teaches you how to listen non-judgmentally, teaches you how to give reassurance and hope. It teaches you to give them the skills to encourage appropriate professional advice or help, or even self-help strategies. It's a game changer. This training changed my life and saved my life. I've had challenges with depression and anxiety, and even recently, it's always good to fall back to those skills to learn to do the CPR on yourself. or the mental health first aid on yourself. Recognize where you're at, and thinking about this for the holidays. I'm going to give you this and I'm out of here. We're going to think about gravy. Everybody loves gravy over the holidays, right? There's all kinds of different recipes out there, but this is what seems to be working for me right now. The recipe of what's going on in my life is, gravy. The G stands for gratitude. You have to give yourself some gratitude every day. Give some other people some gratitude in your life every day. They're all around you. You do that just one time for yourself, one time to another, you'll do it more. The R, routine. You need to build a routine coming into the next few months. All right. During the key times, it helps you get in front of the life challenges. All right. A is for awareness. You need to know where you're at. If you need help finding yourself, you need to know how to get that help for yourself. All right. If you know that you're aware that somebody is going through something, you have the obligation to check into them if you're their friend. It's just that simple. B is for vulnerability. This is hard. This is really hard for people because you have to open yourself up and share the hardest thing going on and hope they don't destroy you, and it's a lot. But once you create that trust with a friend, it doesn't matter, that person's there. They're going to accept you when you're vulnerable. And lastly, for the Y, is you can be the difference in somebody's life every single day. If you think about somebody, pick up the phone and call them. All right. It's just a sign that they want to hear from you. And we're all thinking it, why hasn't that person called me? I should call them, but nobody knows what to do right now. So I think, the gravy and getting certified in mental health first aid and doing yoga and meditation and everything that the Home Collectors has to offer, we're going to do a lot of good.
Thank you, John. To that, I have to say, because I raised my hand and said, I know how to do, I don't even remember what the question was now. Oh, how to identify somebody going through a mental health crisis, I think it was. But I had the opportunity to take mental health first aid training from John sometime last year. And I took the training to learn how to help others, but I didn't expect how much I would take away in how to help myself, because I was already a yoga teacher, a yoga therapist. I meditated, but I came from a family that doesn't really do doctors. Like, we don't go to the doctor unless there's like a knife literally sticking out of our head. And nobody in my family of 8 ever saw a therapist until like later in life, but it's just not what we do. And so, I went into this mental health first aid training, not really knowing what anxiety was, not really knowing what depression was. And I realized through the training that I had been vacillating from anxiety and depression my whole life, and especially while in the Army. And just being able to identify things that I was experiencing that, and do still experience that still, especially this year. Awareness is key. And also knowing that I'm not alone, that so many people I know deal with this. It's not really, we all go in and out of periods. We all go through waves of emotion. And so I recommend, if you are available sometime next year, to take mental health first aid training. It's done in 2 3-hour sessions. It's virtual now. John offers it on his website. You see it right there at the bottom of the screen, www.vaway.org. And the special cost for it right now is $111. And so if you would like to get on the wait list to get trained in mental health first aid, then please just type in your name, or you can privately message me or John. We'll add you to that list. And when we have the dates available for January, February, we will let you know. So thank you, John. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to open this up now to our big view. And if anybody has questions, please type them in. Let us know what you want to know. And if not, we're just going to talk about some stuff. Did any of you teachers, while we were talking, think of anything that you wanted to say or share? Dee, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, I was listening to John, and I'm gonna need you to put my name on that wait list. Just let you know. But also, I want to also touch on the simple fact that we are also in a social climate change. Since the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and things that's going on, African Americans we are in panic mode. I can just say, I'm tired. I am so tired. And I know a lot of people in a lot of Black and brown communities feel the same because of what's going on. And it's still a stigma on mental health. It's still, as a Black woman, you don't talk about your problems. You deal with it, you stuff it, you don't deal with it, you don't talk about it because you got to keep going to pay the bills to feed your kids. That's the culture that is breeding right now. And I'm glad that it's starting to open up a little more. But I hope a lot of people who are hearing this understand that even with things that's going on, I think John was talking about the feeling for other people. I forgot the actual term. I know it's in my head. I had the training for it, but it's in my head. I just can't get it out. But it's not only for us, but it's the other people who are experiencing this and watching this that is not of the African American community and the brown community. That's like, shit, this really happening, and they're feeling it. And I'm saying, a lot of times we as a community need to recognize that and say it's okay. It's okay to talk about your feelings. It's okay to go to a therapist. It's okay to tell people you need help without feeling weak, because that's the stigma of getting help, that you are weak. You're just a weak person. And I just want to say, because of everything that's going on, especially with the kids, we need to listen to the kids. And I know I said that before, but especially when it comes to racial, ethnic, what's going on with the riots and with, the things that's happening, children is taking it in a lot. And if the parents taking it in, the kids are taking it in. So don't let silence be a killer. Please talk. Reach out, like John said, reach out saying, hey, you're okay. What is it that you need me to hear? Because sometimes people just want to listen. They just need an ear. They don't need judgment. They don't need anything else, but they just need to let somebody say, I hear you. We good with that. So I just want to say thank you for this platform. Like, really.
Thank you, Dee. Carrie, what you got?
I was just going to say, I think it's a really important thing to remember as a parent, just to touch on this, that kids intrinsically know that something's up. So letting your child know that you are not okay within reason is a good, you don't want to dump on them and make them feel unsafe. But they know. If you're like, no, everything's fine, I just have allergies. No, girl, you don't have allergies. Your kid knows that you are crying for a different reason. Kids know. And one of the most important ways that we can build empathy in our children is to let them know that feeling that they have in their stomach, how to name it. And so if they feel that something is going on in their village, so to speak, your family, your household, your friends, don't brush it under the rug. Say, you're right, mommy is, whatever it is that will they'll be able to digest for their age, that doesn't feel like a burden. Yes, mommy's sad. It's not your fault. It's okay for mommy to be sad. Sometimes you get sad. Make it an opportunity to open up the floor for talking about feelings. Because I remember as a kid growing up in a staunch Irish Catholic family where we did not talk about things, knowing that something was up and thinking I was weird because it was called something else. And it took a lot of time to unlearn that, a lot of therapy, and I internalized it as stomach problems or whatever it is as a kid. So do your kids a favor, save them some therapy bills maybe down the line. And if something's going on within the realms of knowing that you're not dumping on them and something that they can digest for their age, name the feeling, give an example of when they might feel it in their lives on their level, and tell them that it's okay to feel it. It's okay. And that in yoga, we call it holding space for feelings. And I think it's a really important thing to remember, even with the kids, because they know something's up. So just to say everything's fine, that doesn't really work anymore. They internalize it. So let them know within the realms of safety and what they can digest, that it's okay to have feelings, and that your family has got you. That's, I think, a really important thing.
Thank you, Carrie.
To
and
remember.
I wanted to say, I didn't put this banner up in the beginning because I was nervous and I forgot, but Carrie, she sounds like a professional because she is. she used to be an actress, and she is an actress, and she was on Law and Order. She actually we were at Ellicott City one day, like out back in one of those festivals in the back parking lot, and somebody spotted you and they were like, oh my God, Carrie Sotaro. I watch every single Law and Order episode ever, and you were on episode 14 and 25. It was so funny. But Carrie also runs a podcast for moms who want to just talk about real shit and maybe take a drink or two. Well, that's the Facebook Live podcast, which is at 9 p.m. on Wednesday night. So it's after you put your kid to bed, go grab a drink. Carrie and her friend Ashley will make you laugh and also talk about real stuff and help you to feel like you're not alone and make it through things. And then their regular daytime podcast that you listen to is on iTunes. Under the Momtourage podcast. Thank you. I will.
Thank you. And you can also always find me at carrietarot.com.
I didn't make you one of those banners. Sorry.
You don't have to. It's just my name.
Cool.
That's it. I'm going to use
the
this as
chat.
my wand.
Thank you. You guys made me think of something else I wanted to say. Okay, yes, this is it. So we're talking about all this meditation and yoga and how much it helps, but yoga and meditation can be expensive and it's not accessible to everyone. And we would love to make it free, but then we wouldn't be able to pay our rent. However, we have found a way to make it accessible to all and to kind of balance out the income equality. So at the Collective, we have angel memberships. And what that means is if you can't afford yoga and meditation, then you can put an application in with us. You can go to the Collective.us, put an application or just email us and let us know that you're in need and we'll put you on the waiting list. And we have angel memberships, and those are for people who are doing all right now. Like maybe you got a defense contracting job, maybe you got a government job and you're doing well, and yoga and meditation has helped and changed your life and you want to give back. So if you buy an angel membership, it not only pays for your membership to live and recorded yoga classes, but it also goes towards subsidizing the membership of someone who's in need. We'll be doing a fundraiser next Saturday, the 19th, to raise money to give to people who need yoga and meditation. So we also have a free meditation class every week on Wednesday at 12 p.m. And if you're ever just in need of yoga, message me. I will get you in a class. So I saw that Justine, you talked about disenfranchised grief. I don't know if you mean you want us to elaborate on it a little more or if that was just like a big takeaway for you, but just for people who maybe are just now tuning in, disenfranchised grief is the grief that you feel by all of the loss that you're seeing everyone around you experience. So you might not have had somebody die of COVID, or maybe somebody hasn't, you haven't lost a job or you haven't lost anything, but every time you turn on the news and every time you log into Facebook, you're seeing that somebody's mom died or somebody lost a job or a restaurant closed or all the musicians having difficulties. So that's disenfranchised grief, and how it presents in your body, in your mind, is depression and anxiety. You might be feeling upset for no reason and you don't understand why. That could be disenfranchised grief. The benefit to being able to name it and us talk about it allows us to A, normalize it, and to process it, B. So like I said earlier, you got to feel it to heal it. You got to feel what's going on and you have to allow it. And once you allow it, it's going to move through you like water, because emotions are like waves. They come and go and they pass through us. And as a collective, we are all connected through, not just through the internet, but by this great big web of consciousness and of energy. And we're all feeling each other right now. So allowing, and then also just giving yourself compassion and love, because you're doing the best you can. Reach out to someone if you need help. Great. Thank you, Justine. And I think with that, we might close unless anybody else has something to add or ask.
I just want to add that there's two versions of the mental health first aid that is really important. One is the adult version. So when your peers and adults, but the other version is teaching you how to recognize the challenges and signs and symptoms in children. So if you're a teacher, a coach, you work with children, you have a lot of children, that class would be really beneficial as well. So there's a big difference in the two.
Okay, good point. Great. Well, another question I wanted to ask you guys out there, if you're still watching, we'll be doing these roundtable sessions more often, once, twice a month, maybe more. So if there's a topic you would like us to cover, whatever, difficult conversations, anything that pertains to mental health, then let us know and we will put it on the to-do list. So thank you all for tuning in. I hope that we were able to give you some solace, some hope, and some connection for your December. And we will be back probably in a few weeks with another topic to bring to you. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, John. Thank you, Carrie and Dee and Shayna who are here. Y'all have a great rest of your Sunday.
Thank you.
Like the gravy.